All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. I am Neat Intel, I guess. It is Saturday, August 10th, 2024. And for anyone who clicked for the thumbnail or the video title, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are at war. We are at war with misinformation. Now, if this is your first time on the channel, my name is Neat Intel. This is a channel where we monitor the high frequency global communication system. This is a communication system used by the US military to broadcast encrypted messages over shortwave radio and communicate with a variety of assets around the world. And this channel exists in the context or adjacent to the OSINT Twitter space. And just because this is a special video, we're going to name some of the buffoonery I've had to deal with in the last 2.5 years I've been doing this. Channels like KLW News, which a few months ago I did an extended live stream on and then made a copy of that available on archive.org. For anyone interested, I can drop that link in the chat box later on. Channels like NY Prepper, who a few months ago told people that a exercise being broadcast over the HFGCS was a nuclear exercise. Channels like Duramax, who, as far as I've been able to tell, is immediately adjacent to KLW News and has a chat box that just spouts nonsense. And also previously involved in open source intelligence communities like EAM.watch, which just seem to be chasing around their own tail and forgetting information they already knew and just repeating the same nonsense over and over. Folks, the reason I got into all of this, I have no background in military communications. I have no background in military or intelligence. I actually have an education in the health sciences, to put it as much as I'm willing to share. But I got into this at the start of 2022 because I saw people saying something weird was going on with EAMs, and that meant war was about to start with Russia. They seem to be right. There were a lot of EAMs in January of 2022, and as we all know, Russia invaded Ukraine in February of 2022, and that war is still ongoing. And I thought that was quite interesting, so I decided to follow EAMs more and get an idea of how correct they were. And while I was doing that, I figured out there was a lot of nonsense being spoken about EAMs and the HFGCS on the internet. And I just started transcribing them, recording them, uploading them to YouTube, and I've been doing that. Now, the reason we're at war with misinformation, um, actually, for anyone who is not new to the channel, you will know I just went on a hiatus for pretty much the entire month of July. And I kind of did that because, in all honesty, it is sometimes difficult to deal with the audience here and some of the people. And I say that because I'm not stupid. It's fairly obvious to me what's going on now, which is I put out this channel and I put out meaningful information and try and provide you guys with a little bit more context and realistic impression of what's going on with the HFGCS, what you can infer with these messages and what you can't infer with these messages. And I've even now started to do some, forecasting and predictions just to give you guys an idea of how routine some of these messages are. And what's becoming obvious to me is these other channels watch this channel and use this information to get themselves ready for their streams and their shilling, where they make anywhere from 10 to Lord knows 100 times more. I do. Just to let you guys know, this episode of Happening Watch is monetized, as were the last few. Excluding super chats, I think I made $1 in ad revenue so far. So that kind of gives you an idea. Both YouTube monetization isn't actually all that it's cracked up to be if you're not a big channel, and how much more some of the other folks might be making, and realistically, the bounds of what they could be making, which makes it all the more surprising that they are willing to put out nonsense. Now, before I went on the hiatus, I actually put together a very large video kind of explaining all this, and going and kind of preparing like a PowerPoint for you folks to explain, why is this frustrating? Why is it damaging? Um, and then the PowerPoint didn't save properly, and I was about to lose it. I'm like, well, I mean, I should probably just take a break anyways. So I just took July off for basically sanity and kind of come back and decide how do I want to manage this going forwards. And what's happening today, and again, it's not to call that specific person out, but basically they came to the Neat Intel live stream and they said they heard on another channel someone said that if there are multiple EAMs read back to back, that's actually just one big EAM. And it was so absurd of a claim. I was quite upset, and if you jump into the daytime stream for August 9th, pretty early, I think in the first 10 or 20 minutes, I go through how silly that is. And the reason it's upsetting is, and I mentioned this during the stream, if I thought someone was going to come around on YouTube and do a better job of monitoring the HFGCS and EAMs so that I could, as an audience member, tune in and feel like I understood what was going on, like I would be very happy to step away. Again, this is not something I have expertise in. I'm naturally going to hit like an intelligence and practical cap in terms of what I can and can't comment on. Um, but like when the other channels are can't even count the number of EAMs correctly, and then sort of have this audacity. I know what these channels are, by the way. Like I log in again, like this Duramax, I go in there, and it's always the same stupid names. And shout out to I think his name is Tim Harkness. You're a moron. You don't know what you're talking about, sir. And people like that, where they kind of what they get out of participating in these communities is a chance to feel like they're intelligent and state things as fact. Like again, 3 back-to-back EAMs is 1 EAM. That's completely absurd and stupid. And my question would be, anyone who comes from those channels and then comes to these channels, like this channel, and kind of asks a question like that, when have these people ever led you in the correct direction? When have you ever gotten valuable information from them? Um, and someone was sort of confused. They asked, do I hate all the other YouTube channels? And not at all. Um, and one example I mentioned, I want to bring up on screen for you. I don't know if you guys remember a few months ago, someone said that they never do exercises on the primary HFGCS frequencies. So I thought that was such a self-evidently stupid claim. I didn't even feel like directly addressing it as such. But one of the channels that is good, PDGLS, I've recommended it in the past. I still recommend it. We love PDGLS. He found a what is this? Issue.com. I can't remember what magazine this is, but this is published by the U.S. military. The Navy and Marine Corps Aviation Safety Magazine. What year was this published? I don't know if we'll find that in the magazine, but that link will be available to you. And basically, in this magazine, it pretty much says verbatim that exercises are broadcast on the HFGCS. So it's kind of like I mentioned during the stream, like, there is no due respect. Like, I'm not going to be snide and say, with all due respect to the other YouTube channels that are claiming these crazy, there is no respect due. They're ridiculous people. And that's who we're at war with. Um, and I do want to play something for you, but before we do that, I do also want to provide you guys some value, and then we can kind of dwell on this drama some more. As far as what's happened this week, well, let's take a look at the flight map right now. So this is how the tracking there also includes like the last 24 to 36 hours. You get an idea of what military activity has been like in the last little bit for the E4s and the E6s in specific, um, which Today was actually fairly quiet. Now, if I do the history filter, this is just going to show you what's happened in the last hour and 10 minutes because it is now August 10th and ADSB Exchange is now filtering just for that day. So we do have this E4, which did a little pop down to the Gulf of Mexico, and we talked about that briefly at the end of the daytime stream. We didn't hear anything from it. We don't usually hear voice traffic. Bellerophon in the chat box corrected me there. I was a little bit unclear when I said that. But I said it was possible we might hear maybe some digital transmissions on the lower frequencies. I don't think we did. We did. Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is Feb. Okay, now it's not loading for me. Hold on. Give me one moment here. Because I clicked something wrong and it's mad at me. There we go. So this is what it looked like through the whole of August 9th. And August 9th, actually, let's go to August 8th, because that was kind of the busiest day of this week. So you didn't have a ton going on with flights. You had two E6s up in the air. And this one sort of did these flights around. We like to call them here on the channel, and I think we're borrowing that from somewhere, the nuclear fields. So like the nuclear silo fields, this is where all the ICBMs are in their little silos up in North Dakota and Montana. And if ADSB Exchange lets me jump to the day before, you'll see that actually that same plane flew very similar paths, but kind of like adjacent to in terms of where it was flying those racetrack patterns. I don't know if it'll let me jump back. Now, August 8th was interesting because we had at least 38 EAMs that day. Now, I've said in the past, the quantity of EAMs you hear, who really cares? That doesn't necessarily tell you anything. You need a little bit of context. And if I can do this right now without breaking anything, is Excel going to open? There we go. So for August 8th, I believe you guys can see that. It's a little bit small. We'll zoom in a bit. So 38 messages. And what you'll notice, these messages that are highlighted in red are like messages that were broadcast more than once. So there is a decent amount of repeat messages. And that's always one thing you want to take a look at when you're trying to get an idea of, well, why were there so many messages? Like how many of those were actually unique? And this one in particular, this X-ray 2 India X-ray Lima Alpha, first broadcast at 15:59, ended up being repeated 14 times. And it was sort of after the day was done that I realized, wait a minute, we don't usually hear an EAM broadcast that often, like the same one over and over and over. Bellerophon in the chat box pointed out they usually expire within 2 hours. Now, there have been exceptions, and I had to quickly rig something together for you, ladies and gentlemen. This is kind of crude and rudimentary, but I tried to like just set something up to get an idea of messages that are repeated a lot. So I have a counter on the side here. So let's just, start off and say how many messages are there that have been repeated 10 times? Well, this would be at least 10 times. So some of these ended up being repeated more. But you will see January 30th, 2022. You will see January 31st, 2022, right there. What's interesting there is, according to notes provided by Jeff Haverlaw, who we've shouted out in the past, the next day, February 1st, was a Skymaster event. April 17th, 2023, I believe that was also, yeah, I'm fairly confident because I remember that hailstorm call sign. There were Skymaster messages broadcast that day. January 5th, 2024, there was a Skymaster event on the 11th, so that's something. June, April 9th, April 10th, 11th. 10th, 11th here, that's going to stick out to some of you because you will remember April 12th was a Skymaster event. For many of you, that was kind of your first introduction to this channel. April 18th as well was a Skymaster event. April 20th wasn't. May 16th was not. Sorry, wait. May 16th was. You had the May 15th, May 16th, and then August 8th. Well, that's what we're talking about right now. Filtering a little bit more, let's look at messages that were repeated 14 times or more. Even more clearly, it's really the other times messages were repeated that much was in the context of Skymaster events. Now, I wouldn't propose that August 8th was a Skymaster event and we missed it. But it does seem like a date to make a note of and try and figure out what did happen. Now, we've talked in previous episodes of the Happening Watch this week. We do have ongoing right now Operation Bamboo Eagle in the California region, and we also in the Wisconsin area have Operation Northern Lights. And in the Wednesday Happening Watch, uh, we talked about those in a little bit more depth. So that's something that you can take a look at. As far as what happened August 9th, so you didn't have anything that was repeated a crazy amount of times, but you did have enough going on that I decided to go ahead with a daytime stream I originally wasn't planning on doing. A decent amount of repeats, nothing crazy. In total, at least 23 messages, including repeats. There was also an EAM for an issue 49. Let's see if I can just put that back on screen for you guys again. No. For issue 49. So I don't think we saw an E6 take off with that call sign. We saw something with like a 50 call sign. Let me see. Let's put that back on screen for you right now. One of these. No. August 9th. Histo 50. So I don't think that's that. Extra 38. So there was a message for an E6 and it didn't take off with that call sign. So that will be something to keep an eye out for in the next few days. Again, maybe on August 10th, which we're now just in the early hours of, we'll see something take off with this call sign, or maybe we never will, or maybe something else use that call sign and we are just oblivious to it. It's tough to say. It is tough to say. Now, folks, I want to do something a little bit dramatic for you. And this is maybe a little bit excessively theatric, but I don't know if you guys remember, just on this topic of war and who it is, that we're fighting misinformation, and give you guys an idea of like some of the extrinsic concerns for this project. You guys might remember this all started off as a personal project on my personal YouTube uh, under a different username where I used this little anime girl profile picture. And for one of the other channels in particular, this seemed to bother them because they really thought like I thought that I was this anime girl. And basically, I just look at this like the same way like a sports team might have I don't know, a peacock or a chicken or something as its mascot, and a team of cheerleader girls like cheering the team on. That's how I always thought of this stuff. Apparently, some people like to think of their profile pictures as themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not think of myself as a 16-year-old Chinese girl with mental illness. It's an adorable characterization. But if I were to sort of pick a profile picture and say, this is me, this is who I am. For those of you not familiar, there is a PlayStation 2 video game called Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of the Patriots, which was released September of 2001, maybe October. And I mention that date in specific because there was a scene where terrorists drive a very large submarine into the Twin Towers of New York. and the game's release was delayed because they had to remove that scene from it, given what had just happened. To set up some context for you, in this game, the main character you play as, his name is Raiden slash Jack, and he is fighting the Sons of Patriots, a terrorist group, while also fighting some sort of ominous AI, artificial intelligence system, which has learned how to impersonate people's visuals as well as their voices. And they have a very nefarious plan for world domination. And it's considered a game that's very prescient. It's more of a political analysis than anything else. So that's probably as good as a context I can set up for you here. But if I were to pick something that were to be like me, as a personal representation, it would be the Patriots AI. So I'm just going to play this excerpt of one of the game's cutscenes for you.
We are formless. We are the very discipline and morality that Americans invoke so often. How can anyone hope to eliminate us? As long as this nation exists, so will we.
Cut the crap! If you're immortal, why would you take away individual freedoms and censor the net?
Jack, don't be silly.
Don't you know that our plans have your interests, not ours, in mind?
What?
Jack, listen carefully, like a good boy.
The mapping of the human genome was completed early this century. As a result, the evolutionary log of the human race lay open to us.
We started with genetic engineering, and in the end, we succeeded in digitizing life itself.
But there are things not covered by genetic information.
What do you mean?
Human memories, ideas, culture, history.
Genes don't contain any record of human history.
Is it something that should not be passed on? Should that information be left at the mercy of nature?
We've always kept records of our lives, through words, pictures, symbols, from tablets to books.
But not all the information was inherited by later generations. A small percentage of the whole was selected and processed, then passed on. Not unlike genes, really.
That's what history is, Jack.
But in the current digitized world, trivial information is accumulating every second, preserved in all its triteness, never fading, always accessible.
Rumors about petty issues, misinterpretations, slander.
All this junk data, preserved in an unfiltered state, growing at an alarming rate.
It will only slow down social progress, reduce the rate of evolution.
Right. You seem to think that our plan is one of censorship.
Are you telling me it's not?
You're being silly. What we propose to do is not to control content, but to create context.
Create context.
The digital society furthers human flaws and selectively rewards development of convenient half-truths. Just look at the strange juxtapositions of morality around you.
Billions spent on new weapons in order to humanely murder other humans.
Rights of criminals are given more respect than the privacy of their victims.
Although there are people suffering in poverty, huge donations are made to protect endangered species. Everyone grows up being told the same thing.
Be nice to other people.
But beat out the competition.
You're special. Believe in yourself and you will succeed.
But it's obvious from the start that only a few can succeed.
You exercise your right to freedom, and this is the result. All rhetoric to avoid conflict and protect each other from hurt. The untested truths, spun by different interests, continue to churn and accumulate in the sandbox of political correctness and value systems.
Everyone withdraws into their own small gated community, afraid of a larger forum. They stay inside their little ponds, leaking whatever truth suits them into the growing cesspool of society at large.
The different cardinal truths neither clash nor mesh. No one is invalidated, but nobody is right.
Not even natural selection can take place here. The world is being engulfed in truth.
And this is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper.
We're trying to stop that from happening.
It's our responsibility as rulers. Just as in genetics, unnecessary information and memory must be filtered out. to stimulate the evolution of the species. Who else could wade through the sea of garbage you people produce, retrieve valuable truths, and even interpret their meaning for later generations?
All right. So, I mean, the point I'm getting at there, again, I would not see myself as the gentleman on the right. I would see myself as the artificial intelligence system on the left. Guys, you know I absolutely like hate hate YouTube. Um and one of the reasons is for something they allude to there, and this is part of like why that game is considered prescient in its analysis. The internet is just turning into this thing that's accumulating a lot of garbage information, and it needs to be like managed. And there's a couple ways to manage this. One is to sort of withdraw into these channels, and again, there are other channels that cover the HFGCS available to you on YouTube. They record EAMs and they turn it into more of an entertainment show for you. They'll tell you all sorts of hysterical things about this means war is about to start, or they will put, uh, the audio feed of an EAM with a map of what's going on in Iran, and we've done that for you a little bit during Happening Watch, but no one has ever proven that there's any connection. If anything, the more I've tried to prove that, the less I've been able to. And that's just the reality of it all. So when we're talking about, not that, good Lord, where are we? Not that again. Nope. Where is it? When we're talking about the collection of, trivial information, I don't consider all of these thousands of EAM transcriptions trivial, trite information. But there's ways, without context, without analysis, it can effectively become meaningless. That's not even all the messages. I'm giving you only like a snapshot. This is all the frickin' messages. Let's see how long it takes me to scroll through this. Not that long, but I was going pretty fast there. Um, Without context, this doesn't mean anything. Or even worse, with the wrong context, this is going to be used for all sorts of ridiculous stuff, and we've already seen it this year. I talked about this. I think I put the slides together, and it was part of that presentation I said I put together for you guys, and it crashed. But we can take a look at the YouTube. Let's see. Let's see if we can find this for you. So this is all the way back, the start of the channel. Uh, as I mentioned, for a lot of you, the first time you interacted with Neat Intel was during the first Skymaster event in April. And that one had 23,000 views. That was the most popular video I had ever done on YouTube in terms of original content and not a re-upload of anything else on any channel I've ever done. I was very excited about that, and I was glad to be able to provide coverage for people who are interested. And I did what I'd always been doing, and I have no plans of stopping, which was the weekend after I put something together for you guys and said I expect another Skymaster this month as soon as this week, and indeed that happened. Now, this video still did quite well. I don't mean to complain about this video only getting 10,000 views, but some of you will be aware the NY Prepper also now covered Skymaster events on that day and told his audience complete nonsense, not just that it meant war was about to start, but also this was the first Skymaster which had ever happened. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you something which maybe lacks discretion, to be honest with you. I don't know if I should show you this. Screw it. Give me a moment. I'm pulling this up in real time. It just occurred to me. So, some of you might know, I'm aware because YouTube Analytics tells me anyone who watches my channel also watches these other channels. So I know many of you come from, for example, NY Prepper, or the other channels we've mentioned, and I've tried to negotiate a existence, if you like, with these channels, including trying to share information with them. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Hold on. I have to make sure that it's okay to transition that. I have to make sure. Hold on. Can I pop this out? Let me do something. Because I don't need you guys to see everything. Uh, Hold on. I think it's fine. Oh, here we go. This'll work. So, in August of last year, so almost a year ago, here's some emails with NY Prepper where I told this guy about Skymaster events. But nobody cared about Skymaster events in August of 2023 on YouTube. I was still trying to drum up interest. He was just asking about Sky King events all over and over and over. So I was telling him about Skymasters last year, and he did not care because this doesn't get him any clicks. Nobody watches his videos if I talk to him about Skymaster events. Oops, that one is not from him. I even in February of last year, even like way back before that, talked to this guy about Skymaster events. He did not care. It doesn't get him any clicks. It's not until, I did the video on the 12th covering a Skymaster event and got that 20,000 views, that he then did his video on this next Skymaster event, and told people all kinds of stuff and nonsense about it. So, like, this is kind of the war we are in, ladies and gentlemen. Like, we are at war with misinformation on YouTube. And I'm sorry, but that is the way it is. If I email someone giving them context and backstory and information about Skymaster events, and they take it upon themselves to not just not work with me, like it was always this one-sided relationship where I was feeding information but never got cooperation back. But they're gonna now take that and run with it, and make shit up for views. Like, come on. So this is why I was upset today when I saw someone from yet another one of these, OSINT, uh, air quotes channels, and any of the other channels that I've talked about. Um, why are you going to them for information? Like, really, like, it's just when have they led you in the right way? This is the thing. Um, so I guess I want to make two things very clear. This is not new. Like, we have been at war. We are still at war with these ridiculous channels, and I hope, folks, you will understand why at certain times I have to draw certain lines and make certain things very clear to you, in terms of what we will or will not entertain on this channel. If you guys have questions about things, even after looking through the resources and stuff that I've provided and the context I'm trying to provide to you, so that it's not just trite, meaningless information, but something you can kind of put together and make a story and become interested in. Fantastic. The other thing I think I should make clear, because I don't think I ever have, I don't know if I would still consider myself, air quotes, open source intelligence. I don't know if it's still fair to call myself OSINT, if I now have this thing that I have to worry about, which is this sort of, well, if I put information out, then I know there are just these morons who are going to line their stuff up, and basically like parasites right off the back of, my work. I spend a fair amount of time, putting this stuff together, and working with a couple of other people to have an idea what's going on so that when these messages do come, I can give you guys context, um, and you can be in some cases less alarmed. Some of you are quite alarmed when these messages happen. In other cases, you're curious as I am, and we're trying to piece together a story so that even if we don't know everything, we at least know more than we did. Uh, at least it's not a rapid thing, so we won't necessarily know more than we did yesterday, but at least know more than we did a year ago. And in some cases, there are people I work with who I'm kind of catching up with things they've already figured out. So that's why I try and be mindful of being patient with some of the audience, but I also know if you're just going to the other people who are winding you up for clicks, I'm not going to win if I play fair. I'm not going to stop sharing information with you guys, but if I have to worry about, giving out information for free from folks who are going to profit off, it's just messy. So that's kind of something I want to talk about in brief. Um, we're still forming that idea. One thing I want to do this month, because I just said I hate YouTube. Back in June, we did do a Twitter space, and the reason I like Twitter spaces over YouTube is there's not so much of a priority for me to just, lecture at you guys. The thing, one of the hundreds of things I don't like about YouTube is it really does separate the person running the channel from the people who are watching the channel. That sounds kind of obvious, but that wouldn't be how it would work if this was a project that we were doing on a message board, or a Discord. We do have a Discord, but it's not very active at all. So yeah, I do want to do a Twitter space at some point this month, because then that's more of an opportunity for direct one-on-one conversation. Like I'll still be the host and there'll be some level of control, but more or less, me shouting and pounding the desk and whatnot, and more you guys can kind of ask questions and suggestions. I found the last one very helpful for myself, and I think you guys got value out of it. So if we do that maybe once or twice a month, in addition to streams like this, I think that's a good thing. What else did I want to talk about? I basically just didn't want to, mess up the whole daytime stream by like just going off on this, as you can see, near 40-minute kind of tangent about why this is still something that we have to consider. Um, one of the things I said that I did find the June uh, Twitter space helpful because getting to speak with some of you more directly gave me an opportunity to kind of realize most of you get it. It is not such a dire situation. Like sometimes I'm in a very bad mood, and kind of my brain goes like this, where I'm just like, you guys know, right now I have like whatever 1,000 viewers or 500 viewers a stream. I was doing this a year ago, and we only had like 64 viewers a stream sometimes. So, 70 viewers. I don't care. I don't need like that's not productive. That's just kind of me throwing um a tantrum, but it should kind of make obvious to you, like, I'm not doing this only for the money, because it's not very good money outside of the direct support from some of you on Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and Super Chats and other funding. And I very much appreciate that. And I've said the goal is ultimately to raise enough money to kind of not just make up for the time that I do lose spending on this that I could have spent on other things to make money. The other ways I make money I don't really enjoy doing, like crypto and other financial manipulation nonsense. This doesn't pay very well, but it's more rewarding. But if it were to grow successful, um, and kind of increase in scale, then the money could go to not running streams off of a 2009 iMac. It could go to, I talked about this back in June, more advanced technology and I think maybe even a second internet connection for the places I stay in so that it doesn't like tie up my own bandwidth, if you understand what I'm trying to say. Like, if money goes into this project, it can scale, and it can grow. And one of the things that I've joked about and tried to be mindful with you guys, there is a little bit of showmanship that's required for YouTube, so we will do a little bit more. I think it'll be easier for you guys. I've talked about this in the past. You know, these thumbnails don't necessarily lend themselves perfectly well to sharing and stuff. They're intentional in some sense. I don't want the audience to quickly grow because we've already had so many growing pains just with the 10x, um, in terms of like the average viewer per stream in the last 6 to 8 months. Uh, so it is kind of on purpose, but this month we will kind of gradually shift to more ambiguous thumbnails. I think this video is doing a little bit better because of the clickbait. This is very clickbaity, but it's also, oops, this is about to echo, isn't it? It's also like not uh, Korean girls with the juxtaposition of, you know, what I'm trying to say. So we'll transition. We'll also, you know, have more fun without being too serious. You know, is it happening? Nothing ever happens. That's how I joke around anyway, so it's not like out of character for me. We're absolutely fine to do that. But I don't want to just like default entirely into this kind of thing where I see what the other channels do and I know it gets clicks. Like, I'm not gonna put a 24/7 map of Iran over HFGCS audio feed because that's implying a connection between those two that no one has ever demonstrated. And I will keep looking for that, but no one's demonstrated like that. Like, there's much more of an obvious connection between EAMs and some of the planes which broadcast EAMs. That's fine. When, you know, when the technology improves on my end, that will be put next to each other. But like, we're not going to do the thing. I saw the one stream today I mentioned at the top of the video. You don't even see like a waterfall of the HFGCS on the screen. You see in one corner, um, and Israel Skycam. You see in one corner a map of Iran, and then in one corner you see like this screenshot of what's going on Twitter. There's like a screenshot of financials. It just looks like a what would be the politically correct way of saying this? You know, like those conspiracy boards, like the cork boards where the guy is like got the pins and the threads connecting everything, and it just looks like insane conspiracy theories. I'm not gonna run a YouTube channel like that. I have no interest in running a YouTube channel like that because then I'm just throwing up garbage on screen. One of the reasons that a channel like that is so popular, you'll notice usually the people running them very rarely intervene in the chat. They very rarely come on the mic because they sort of create an opportunity for people to just go wild and say whatever they want. All kinds of crazy conspiracies and stupidity. Um, you know what's gonna happen with the HFGCS broadcast this month? People are going to tell you it necessarily relates to what's going on in the Middle East. Um, I and I've already given you guys a couple forecasts. I said on August 17th and 18th, you can expect long EAMs. Let's pull that up on screen right now. I think that's worth doing because this is a good example of something like I'm not going to not do this just because there are morons. So if you go to the Neat Intel X account, you go highlights. You don't have to scroll that far down actually. So back on May 19th, I kind of identified a pattern with EAM broadcasts. So you can kind of look through this and get more information. But here you can see these are the forecasts for August 17th and August 18th. And you can read there for more information. So this was made for you months in advance. This was May 19th. Now, it's entirely possible this doesn't happen, and you can read for more context, and also you can just immediately consider if I've posted this out 3 months in advance of EAM broadcasts, It gives the US military more than enough time to maybe decide it's not a good look for them if this still happens. But you can look through the previous information, previous recordings on the screen to see that it had been a pattern. These long messages are routine. The other thing that I've forecast for you folks, I am expecting, with a high degree of conviction, a Skymaster event on Wednesday. Well, one of 3 Wednesdays. I have a high degree of conviction of it happening, but I don't quite know the date. If I had to bet, it would be Wednesday, August 28th, but I consider August 21st or September 4th as possible alternates, and it'll become more obvious when we get closer to those days how it's looking to shape up. Now, as I say that, again, those channels are going to take that and get ready. Like, they're going to have additional coverage. This is what they've done before. They're going to do it again. I spend the time collecting all the data, transcribing the messages, putting together a story so that I can kind of bring that information to you. Uh, they don't do any of that work. They just if it's not them watching the stream, it's one of their flunkies watching the stream, and they're gonna tell them those dates, and they're gonna get their streams ready, and they're already in an advantageous position in terms of viewers and the logarithm and etc. So they will win that. And that is why on a day like today, when someone asks me a question from another channel that is self-evidently silly, I will not react very well. I think that's the gist of what I wanted to say. I don't have much room to expand on that. The one thing I will say, we're gonna keep an eye in terms of what's going on right now with HFGCS traffic. So 38 messages yesterday, an unusually high number of repeats. Today was fairly non-exceptional, I would say. We did have EAMs and standing by for traffic, but as I often kind of point out on Fridays, if it all starts to quiet down by 5 p.m. Eastern local time, that's telling me the 9 to 5 office guys were just catching up on anything that still had to get done. So it's kind of just picking up before it quiets down. But weekends can be busy, so they also can be very quiet. They aren't actually that different from days of the week, to be honest with you. So we'll see whether the momentum picks up, or sorry, maintains itself Saturday, Sunday. Belerathon in the chat box mentioned during the daytime stream, I think he saw someone talking about notices that were effective for Monday. So Monday might be interesting. I don't know yet. I haven't been able to figure that out. I mean, I'll show you what I tried to do, which is not very exhaustive. This would be another thing to take a look at PDGLS's YouTube channel about, because, again, that's one of those people who I would trust with stuff like this. So if he puts any information out, definitely. This is what it looks like right now. By the way, these two large red notice areas in the bottom left off the coast of California and Mexico, that relates to Operation Bamboo Eagle, and we've seen a lot of aircraft activity in that area. Now, as far as the notice that might be in effect on Monday, August 12th, I assume that would be one of these because they mention it's in the East Coast. This isn't cooperating with me. I did a little bit of looking around. I don't know. It wasn't obvious to me which it might be. I was just looking for one with like the minimum altitude. 50,000 feet. Max altitude. That's kind of what I got from the PDGLS video. The clicking I did, I didn't see it. But that would kind of be an example. If you guys take a look into that, or if you find that notice, let me know. I don't know. Now, there's a lot of conversation in the chat box, and we'll take about 10 minutes right now to go through that and see if there's any questions or burning issues that I need to talk to. Because I've spoken a lot, and I haven't actively cooperated with you guys here in the chat box. I do apologize for that. I was obviously on a bit of a tear. How do I... Oh, I do know. So you guys were confused about the plot of Metal Gear Solid. So like it's the scene was removed from the game because it involved a submarine hitting the Twin Towers, but you're asking how can a submarine which is underwater hit the Twin Towers? So let me see. We will just Bing this. I don't think the scrap scene was ever like uploaded online or anything. Um, but calling Arsenal Gear, which is the name of the submarine, a submarine is kind of an understatement. Let's just see like MGS Wiki Arsenal Gear. It's like a large here we go. It's a submersible mobile fortress developed for the US Navy. It's like this mega thing. Oh, here's concept art. Okay. Like it's a very large submarine. It's basically like a sci-fi if an aircraft carrier was submersible. That's the idea. So it built up a lot of speed and flings itself out of the water like a manta ray and hits the World Trade Center towers in this deleted cutscene. So there's the concept art, which I forgot was available. So hopefully that resolves the questions that came up with that. And I often think about that cutscene when it just comes to the idea of the accumulation of trite nonsense on the internet. The game is considered prescient because it came out in 2001, but actually the director of the game just read a lot of like philosophy. The ideas aren't new, like he wasn't uniquely psychic, but that's generally kind of the memetics around that game and how it's understood. And it does deserve credit for sort of, in a relative sense, uh, taking those concepts and applying them to relatively contemporary contexts. So, one of those things that rattles around in my head a lot, and that's why I just thought if anyone ever wonders what neat intel, like if you had to pick something to more directly represent him rather than be a mascot, it would be that AI guy who sort of considers himself as like a benevolent dictator. Um, that's how I consider myself. There haven't been that many questions otherwise, though. American Zombie asks, so if it's not the frequency of EAMs that lets us know that something may pop off, what would give us a better idea if something was about to happen in regards to EAMs? So there's a YouTube channel I do like, which is called S2 Underground, and I think 2 or 3 months ago, he did like an FAQ live stream similar to this, but more he kind of went on cam and more directly kind of conversed with his audience as like a Q&A. And I laughed because he just said the HFGCS and EAMs are a rabbit hole and try not to go down it. He's absolutely right. But what he also said was, EAMs can tell you something, but it can't tell you everything. You can't take it as a single factor. You really do have to see what else is going on in the world and try and slot it that way. So, for example, yesterday, in terms of an EAM being repeated 14 times, um, I am talking about frequency there still, but it's not just the frequency. It's kind of like, oh, that's not normal. I usually have only seen that during, a single message being repeated that many times during military exercises, or what certainly seem to have been military exercises. And I'm seeing this now, and while I don't know the Operation Bamboo Eagle in California or Operation Northern Lightning in Wisconsin are necessarily going to catalyze that, that tells me a possible explanation. And in terms of like logistics and probability, you kind of have to stop and think, well, um, is this going to relate to an exercise, or is this going to relate to what other YouTube channels will tell you, which is this means an attack is imminent and the US is preparing for World War III. Is the US preparing for World War III? I do think in the last few years, the US has become more aware of the new geopolitical situation. I do think the US is more aware of some gaps in terms of how a conflict with peer adversaries would go. So we're probably seeing, on the average, more EAMs than we might have seen before I started this project. It's possible I'm kind of like stepping into the um boiling water. You know the frog in boiling water metaphor? Like to me, 2024 doesn't seem to have a lot more EAMs compared to 2023 or 2022, which is when I started monitoring. Like this seems normal to me, but for people who have monitored the HFGCS for extended periods of time, um, and actually have the credibility to back that up, because when you talk to them, they share information with you and etc. They have sort of suggested that there does seem to be an increase to them. I've pushed back on that a little bit. I do think some of the, gaps, there have been gaps in covering the HFGCS some years. But again, if there's someone who's like been doing this a lot longer, you can take their word to mean more than me, and you can certainly take it to mean more than these other channels that don't even seem to be able to correctly count the number of EAMs. I can't tell you how flustering it is. Like around this time last year, I was arguing with one of the channels that I mentioned at the top of the stream because they said I was over uh, counting EAMs or something. Or sorry, no, they were claiming that like there had been hundreds of EAMs that day. And I actually reached out to this person and said, mate, like, what are you talking about? There has been like, 30 or 40 messages, but where are you getting 100 from? And now this was sort of like, oh, this guy can't count. This is proof Intel is a moron. Blah, blah, blah. And now it's the opposite. It's like now they've pivoted to being unable to count the number of EAMs by like not an entire magnitude, but they're counting like 3 EAMs as it's impossible to even get on the same page. So quantity alone is not going to tell you much. That's a very long response to the question, which was just, if the frequency of EAMs doesn't tell you anything, what else can you take a look at? And it's just sort of looking at things in a long time scale, um, trying to contextualize the information you do get and looking at it that way. There was one more question. You guys are saying you're getting a lot of ads on this video. So I did monetize the happening watches, but like I said, excluding super chats and uh subscriptions, I made like not even a dollar off the last three when you take those out, like because the ad revenue is terrible. So if you guys are getting too many ads, this will be I'm gonna stop doing that for these videos then, because it's not even making enough money for it to be worthwhile anyways. Someone asked the difference between Sky King and Sky Masters. I've lost who it was, but I kind of scrolled. Oh, here we go. Primitive X asked that. Primitive X, if you're still here, that's a very. It's not a bad question. I would recommend checking out my X account. So if you look at the pinned post, there's a lot of information there. I don't think I directly answer like the head-to-head, what's the difference between Sky King and Sky Master, but I do kind of speak to both of them. Sky King messages, they're both kind of in a dubious point because up until a few months ago, Sky King messages tended to follow a pretty consistent format. It's changed a few times over the years, but like when you hear a Sky King message, it would kind of sound the same as one before and one after. and it was almost like kind of a notifier. I don't know if Bellerophon happens to be in the chat, but this would kind of be one of those things where I would kind of lean on him because I've heard one. I myself have actually heard one Sky King message, and that's uploaded on this channel. But if you compare it to previous uploadings of Sky King messages, it doesn't sound like any of the other ones before. So that's kind of thrown us for a loop. I think it's thrown all of us for a loop. We never expected to hear a Sky King message like that. But generally, the use of the term Sky King just seems to be an indicator of priority. So if you hear someone saying Sky King, it does seem to have like a high rank importance. It does not mean that nuclear war is about to begin or any of the things that you might see online. Um, but it is an important message. What it means, my guess, as I mentioned on my X account, is I think it's actually in some context like a mission abort or something like that. That's speculation on my part. Sky Master messages are part of these larger scale exercises. And again, this is going to be my speculation, but it seems to be at least some of the Sky Master messages are the United States practicing um, either the immediate reaction to a nuclear strike from an adversary, or maybe even proactive first strike. That's kind of the scale, my impression when I listen to Skymaster events, which is the name I've come up with, not completely on my own. It's been used in the past. They seem to occur at certain times of the year. These exercises last for hours. Some of them are pretty short. Some of them are fairly small scale and seem to just involve a day or two, or sorry, a plane or two. And some will involve whole mass things. If you take a look at the video linked in the description of this video and most of the other live streams when this is done, that's kind of a good way to get started with finding out about Skymasters. The whole second part of the video there is me explaining Skymasters. And I think after the August/September Skymaster, maybe we'll wait until the whole calendar year is done, but some sort of a compilation about all the Skymaster events that have happened so far this year and a little bit of context there may be helpful for folks. I don't know if there are any other questions. Dr. Wild/Dr. Wild, I feel bad. You're getting hit with a lot of ads, and no one else is getting hit with ads anyways. And it's like I'm gonna make 10 cents for the inconvenience. So yeah. I don't want to read your username off because I'm probably going to get demonetized. Try not to be too political in the chat box, guys. I don't want to share my own thoughts on the situation in the Middle East as such because I know it's quite contentious. It is, tragedy what's going on over there. Anyways, rest in peace, Sky King, August 10th. And I think at least one other person. Yeah, today, August 10th, is the 6th anniversary of the one true Sky King, Richard Russell, who I believe he was just sort of like a custodial employee of an airport, and he went for a joyride. He went for a beautiful joyride with an Alaska Airlines plane, and flew some amazing maneuvers. No official like formal aircraft training as far as I recall. Had a lot of fun with the air traffic control and the F-15s that were scrambled to go after him. But unfortunately, he did not land the plane in a conventional sense, and he passed away. Lovely guy. The world didn't get to know him as well as they could have, but we commemorate him on this day, August 10th. All right, folks. Thank you for tuning in. If you watch this because of the intentionally clickbait title, I apologize. I had to try and see how it would go. Hate YouTube, not the player. That's a cop-out excuse. I will tweak the title and thumbnail a little bit afterwards. I'll make it clear that it's a war on clickbait and not anything else. But we are, ladies and gentlemen, we are at war. We have been at war. We remain at war with the parasites who, take everything and contribute nothing. And we remain ever vigilant. And I thank you very much for your patience and your cooperation in this battle for the soul of the internet. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if I should keep saying I am Neat Intel. I'll just say for Neat Intel, I'd like to wish you a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And whenever you happen to be, keep your eyes on the skies. And until next time, bye.